I always thought FaceTime was a lifeline, something that connected me to the people I loved most. But one night, as I stared at my screen, I realized it had turned into something else entirely. A front row seat to the moment my best friend said her last goodbye. When I think back to the months before everything collapsed, what I remember most isn't the drama or the chaos that came later. It's the quiet, ordinary rituals, the little slices of life that felt safe, steady, almost boring in the best way. My name is Hannah, and for most of my 21 years, I leaned on one person more than anyone else. My best friend, Lila. We'd been inseparable since middle school, the kind of duo teachers couldn't split up no matter how many seating charts they tried. If she laughed, I laughed. If I cried, she cried harder. And when we weren't together in person, we were on FaceTime. To us, FaceTime wasn't just an app, it was the lifeline. It was how we did homework together when she was stuck at her dad's house. It was how she calmed me down before exams and how I cheered her up when she bombed a volleyball game. We didn't just talk, we lived entire lives side by side, one on each glowing screen. By last spring, life felt like it was finally settling into a rhythm. I was juggling college classes and a part-time job at a bakery, while Lila, always the dreamer, was talking about applying to nursing school after graduation. Her parents' divorce had been rough, but she swore things were calmer now. Her mom lived a couple states away, her dad had a new girlfriend, and Lila was splitting time between them, claiming she was fine with it. I wanted to believe her. And maybe part of me did. Because when we FaceTimed at night, she still looked like the same Lila, hair piled into a messy bun, oversized hoodie slipping off one shoulder, laughing at her own dumb jokes. We'd gossip about professors, mock reality shows, and plan our summer road trip like nothing could ever derail us. On the surface, everything looked normal. Maybe even better than normal. She told me her dad's girlfriend, Vanessa, was trying, teaching her to cook, driving her to practice, even buying her makeup for prom. Lila shrugged it off like it didn't matter much, but I remember thinking it sounded almost good. Like maybe, after years of tension, she was finally getting a chance at stability. And me. I was busy convincing myself that my own life was fine too. Work, classes, saving money for the trip. FaceTimes with Lila filled the spaces between, keeping me grounded. We'd stay up past midnight, even when we swore we'd hang up after just 5 minutes. She'd fall asleep with the camera still on, the soft rhythm of her breathing filling my room like a lullaby. I'd wake up, roll over, and see her face still frozen on the screen, her phone finally dead. Back then, it felt like forever. Like we'd always have this tether between us, no matter what. But looking back now, I see the cracks we ignored. The way her smile slipped when she thought I wasn't looking. The way she laughed too hard when I asked about her dad. The long pauses when I asked how she really was. I told myself it was just stress, senior year nerves, normal teenage stuff. She told me it was fine. And I believed her. Because believing her meant keeping the illusion that nothing could touch us. That our late-night FaceTimes were enough to protect her. Enough to protect me. Enough to protect everything we loved about our lives. But illusions don't last forever. And the night I answered her call and saw the terror in her eyes, I realized all too late that the stability we thought we had was nothing more than a fragile dream. The first Rayall warning came on a random Tuesday night, the kind of night that should have been forgettable. I'd just come home from a brutal closing shift at the bakery, flowers still on my shirt, hair smelling like burnt sugar, and all I wanted was to crash. But as always, I plugged in my phone, and before I even had time to change, Lila's name lit up my screen. I didn't even hesitate. FaceTime had become muscle memory. When her face appeared, though, something was off. She was lying in bed, camera tilted weirdly so I could only see half her face. The room behind her was dark, except for a strip of light leaking through the crack of her door. "Hey," I said, forcing a smile. "You look cozy." She gave a short laugh, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Yeah, totally cozy. That's one word for it." I frowned. "What's going on?" She hesitated, chewing her lip the way she did when she didn't want to answer. Then she whispered, "Vanessa's downstairs. She's been drinking again." I froze. It wasn't the first time she'd hinted at tension with her dad's girlfriend, but this was the first time I heard fear in her voice. "What happened?" "Nothing," she said quickly. She gets mean when she drinks. Dad's at work, so it's just me and her." She started yelling because I didn't put the dishes away fast enough. Said I'm ungrateful. Said I'm a burden. My stomach twisted. "Lila, it's fine," she cut me off, forcing a smile. "I just came upstairs, locked my door. Not a big deal." But it was a big deal. I could see it in the way her hands trembled as she adjusted the phone. I could hear it in the way her voice wavered. "Do you want me to stay on until your dad gets home?" I offered. Her eyes flickered with relief for just a second before she shook her head. "No, I don't want to make it a thing. I'll just stay quiet until she passes out." The call drifted back into our usual chatter, homework, memes, plans, but underneath it all, I couldn't stop hearing her earlier words. She said I'm a burden. That night, after we hung up, I lay awake staring at my ceiling. I told myself maybe it was a one-time thing. Maybe Vanessa was just having a bad night. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. The next few weeks brought more moments like that. Small, sharp cracks in the picture Lila tried to paint. She'd FaceTime me from the bathroom, whispering so low I could barely hear her. She'd flinch at noises off camera. Once, she muted herself for almost 10 minutes, then came back on with red eyes and insisted she'd just been washing her face. Every time, she brushed it off. Every time, I let her. Because admitting it was serious meant admitting I couldn't protect her from behind a screen. One night, she said something that haunted me long after we hung up. "I swear, Han, sometimes I think if something happened to me, nobody here would even care." I laughed nervously, trying to shake it off. Don't say that. You've got me. You've got your mom. You've got people. But her expression didn't change. She just stared into the camera, eyes glossy, and whispered, "Yeah, but they're not here, are they?" That was the first warning bell. And instead of ringing loud enough to shake me awake, it echoed quietly in the background, blending into the static of our nightly calls. By the time I realized how deafening it really was, it was already too late. By early May, our FaceTime stopped feeling like the casual comfort they used to be. They weren't just nightly check-ins anymore. They were survival sessions. For both of us. Lila started calling me earlier in the evenings, sometimes even in the middle of dinner. At first, I thought she just wanted to vent, but soon it was clear. FaceTime had become her shield. If I was on the other side of the screen, she felt less alone. If she could see me, hear me, talk to me, maybe the monsters downstairs couldn't touch her. But even through the screen, I could see how fast things were unraveling. Her eyes had permanent shadows under them. She'd laugh at my stories, but it sounded brittle, like glass about to crack. She started wearing long sleeves even in the heat, tugging at the cuffs whenever I asked questions. One night, she angled the camera wrong and I caught sight of her wrist. A faint bruise, fading yellow and green. She noticed instantly and yanked her sleeve down. "It's nothing," she said quickly. "I banged it on the counter." I didn't believe her. But what could I do? I wasn't there. I was just a face in her phone. Worse, Vanessa had started interfering with our calls. Sometimes, mid-conversation, the door would creak open and Lila's whole body would tense. I'd hear a voice slur. "Who are you talking to? Is that your little girlfriend again?" Before the screen went black. She'd call me back later, whispering apologies, swearing it was fine. But I knew it wasn't. The isolation tightened around her like a noose. Her mom tried calling, but Lila ignored it more and more. "She doesn't get it," she told me once, her voice flat. "She thinks I can just move in with her. But if I leave, Dad will hate me. And if I stay, at least he's around sometimes." Her friends at school noticed too. In the group chat, people whispered about how different she seemed, how she was always quiet, how she didn't hang out anymore. Some thought she was being dramatic. Others stopped inviting her altogether. So she clung harder to me. One Saturday, I spent nearly 7 hours straight on FaceTime with her. I set my phone against the wall while I cleaned, folded laundry, even ate dinner with my family. She barely spoke the whole time, just sat cross-legged on her bed, watching me like the screen was a lifeline. When I finally asked if she was okay, she whispered, "I just don't want to feel alone right now." The pressure was mounting, and I could feel it bleeding into me too. I started losing focus in class, burning cookies at work, snapping at my parents. I'd stay up half the night staring at the ceiling after our calls ended, replaying every word she'd said, every flicker of fear in her eyes. And yet, every time I suggested telling someone, her mom, a teacher, anyone, she begged me not to. "They'll just make it worse," she insisted. "You don't understand, Han. If you say anything, she'll know it was me, and then I'll really be screwed." Her words trapped me, because maybe she was right. Maybe stepping in would just paint a bigger target on her back. So I kept my mouth shut. I told myself staying on FaceTime was helping. That being her secret witness, her invisible guard, was enough. But deep down, I knew I was becoming part of the isolation too. The only person she trusted, but also the only person who could see how bad it was, and still, I wasn't saving her. And with every passing night, the pressure grew heavier. The calls got darker, and the warnings got louder. Until one night, when the glow of her phone screen showed me more than I ever wanted to see. It was a Thursday night, late enough that the world outside my window had gone quiet. I was lying in bed, half asleep, when my phone buzzed. At first, I almost ignored it. But when I saw Lila's name, something in my chest jolted awake. I answered, and the screen lit up with her face, except it didn't look like her. Her hair was damp and plastered against her skin, like she just showered or cried. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes glassy, her breathing shallow. Behind her, the room was dim, lit only by the glow of her desk lamp. "Lila!" My voice cracked. She tried to smile, but her lips trembled. Hey, you look awful. What happened?" She glanced toward the door like she was afraid someone was listening. Then she whispered, "I don't feel good. Like, really not good." The words made me sit straight up. "What do you mean? Sick? Like flu sick?" She shook her head weakly. "It's worse. My stomach, it hurts so bad. And I can't stop shaking." Her camera slipped for a second, and I caught a glimpse of her arm, blotchy red marks climbing up her skin. "Lila, oh my god, what's happening? Did you eat something? Did you take something?" She winced. "I don't know. Vanessa said I was being dramatic. Dad said he'd call a doctor tomorrow if I was still bad." "Tomorrow?" My voice rose, panic flooding me. "No, you need help now. Lila, you need to go to the ER." She laughed softly, but it sounded hollow. "I can't. They won't take me. Vanessa already told him I was faking it for attention." Her words punched the air out of me. I wanted to scream, to shake her father through the screen. But all I could do was sit there, helpless, watching her curl into herself like every movement was agony. "I'm scared, Han," she whispered. "It feels like something's wrong inside me. Really wrong." That was when I saw it. The truth she'd been hiding under all the jokes, the late-night talks, the forced smiles. This wasn't stress. This wasn't drama. This was her body shutting down in real time. I tried everything. Pleading, reasoning, begging. "Please, Lila, call 911. I'll stay with you, I'll talk to them. You don't have to do this alone. But she shook her head, tears sliding down her cheeks. You don't get it. If I call, Vanessa will lose it. And Dad will say I embarrassed him again. I can't fight them tonight. Her screen blurred as she fumbled with the phone, and for a terrifying second the image froze on her pale face. Hannah, she whispered. Promise me something. Anything. My throat burned. If I don't wake up tomorrow, just tell my mom I tried. Tell her I didn't want to leave like this. The words sliced through me. Don't say that. You are waking up tomorrow. Do you hear me? I'm not letting you say goodbye like this. But the look in her eyes, half dazed, half resigned, told me she didn't believe it. That night, I stayed on FaceTime until dawn, watching her drift in and out of consciousness, clinging to the sound of her breathing through the static. It was the longest night of my life. And when the sun finally rose, I realized something had shifted. This wasn't just about late-night calls anymore. This was about life and death. And if I didn't act soon, FaceTime would become the last window I ever had into my best friend's world. The morning after that terrifying call, I couldn't think straight. I went through the motions of my classes, but everything blurred. Lectures, conversations, the world outside. All I could hear was Lila's broken whisper. If I don't wake up tomorrow, tell my mom I tried. I knew I couldn't sit by anymore. I had to act. But acting meant betraying her trust. I spent hours pacing my dorm room, torn between two impossible choices. Keep her secret and risk losing her forever, or reach out and risk her hating me. By noon, my decision was made. I pulled out my phone and dialed her mom, Claire. Claire answered on the second ring, her voice rushed and distracted. Hannah, is everything okay? I hesitated, then blurted, it's Lila. She's sick. Really sick. She needs a doctor. The line went silent. Then, what do you mean sick? I explained everything I'd seen on FaceTime, the rash, the fever, the way she could barely keep her eyes open. As I spoke, Claire's breathing grew faster, sharper. Her father hasn't taken her in, she demanded. No. He said tomorrow. Vanessa said she was faking it. A strangled sound escaped Claire's throat. That woman, she stopped herself, then added, thank you for telling me, Hannah. I'll handle it. She hung up before I could say more. For the rest of the day, I lived in a haze of dread. I checked my phone every 5 seconds, terrified of what I might see, or not see. Finally, late that night, Lila FaceTimed me again. Her face filled the screen, pale, sweaty, her hair stuck to her temples. You told my mom, she croaked. My stomach dropped. Lila, Dad and Vanessa know. They're furious. I swallowed hard. I didn't have a choice. You need help. I couldn't just sit. You don't get it, she snapped, then broke into a coughing fit. When she caught her breath, her eyes were wild, desperate. Now they won't even let me keep my phone. They said if I call you again, I'm done. The screen wobbled as she clutched it tighter. Han, they're going to cut me off from you. My throat closed. Then run. Go to your mom. Please, Lila. She shook her head weakly. I can't. Dad said if I leave, I'll regret it. He said I owe him for everything. Her words twisted in my chest like a knife. This wasn't just neglect anymore. It was control, manipulation, abuse. I'll come get you, I blurted. I'll drive tonight. Just tell me where. No, she cried, panic flashing across her face. If he sees you, if Vanessa sees you, it'll get worse. Please, Han. Just don't. The screen flickered as she lowered her voice. Promise me you won't stop answering. Promise me, even if they take everything else, I'll still have you. I nodded, tears blurring my vision. I promise. Before I could say more, the door behind her banged open. Vanessa's voice slurred in the background. Who are you talking to? Lila's eyes went wide. The call cut. I stared at my blank screen, hands shaking. That night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Because now, I wasn't just fighting for her health. I was fighting against people who were actively trying to silence her. And the worst part? They held all the power. But I had something too. The truth. And I was done keeping it hidden. The next 48 hours felt like living with a live wire pressed against my chest. Every buzz of my phone made me jump. Every FaceTime ring felt like a lifeline I couldn't afford to miss. But then on Saturday evening, the call came, not from Lila, but from her mom. Hannah, Claire's voice shook on the other end. I'm outside the house. I can hear her through the window. She's crying. I'm calling an ambulance. My pulse skyrocketed. Put me on FaceTime with her, please. There was a shuffle, then suddenly my screen filled with chaos. Flashing porch lights, Claire pounding on the front door, her voice breaking as she yelled, Open up! She needs help. Inside, muffled shouts erupted. Vanessa's voice was unmistakable, sharp, slurred, defensive. Then Lila appeared in the frame, her face pale as paper, clutching the phone in shaky hands. Han, she whispered, her voice barely audible. My heart nearly stopped. I'm here. Stay with me. Don't close your eyes. Behind her, her father stormed into the hallway. His face was red, twisted with rage. What the hell is going on? Claire's voice cut through from outside. She's burning up. Greg, for God's sake, she's your daughter. Let her out. But instead of opening the door, he turned on Lila. You called them, didn't you? You're trying to make me look bad. Lila shook her head weakly, clutching the phone tighter. No, it wasn't me. Her eyes flicked to the screen to me. That was the moment the truth snapped into place. Her father wasn't protecting her. He wasn't blind. He knew. And he was choosing pride over his daughter's life. Listen to me, I shouted through the screen. She's going septic. She needs a hospital now. But he couldn't hear me, or wouldn't. He grabbed the phone out of her hands, and for a terrifying second, all I saw was his furious face filling my screen. Stay out of this, he growled. Then the call dropped. I sat frozen, staring at my reflection in the black glass. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped my phone. Minutes later, Claire called again, this time screaming over the sound of sirens. They're breaking down the door. Hannah, she's not responsive. Oh God, the world tilted. I couldn't breathe. But then, through the chaos, a paramedic's voice came on the line. We've got her. Pulse is weak, but she's breathing. We're moving her now. My knees gave out, and I collapsed onto the floor, clutching the phone like it was the only thing tethering me to reality. The next hours blurred into a storm of updates. The ambulance ride, the ER, for lines, words like infection and organ failure. I stayed on FaceTime the whole time, sometimes seeing her unconscious face, sometimes just listening to the machines beeping in the background. At one point, Claire turned the camera on herself. Her eyes were red, her face streaked with tears. You saved her, Hannah. If you hadn't told me. Her voice broke. But all I could think was how close we had come to FaceTime being the only way I said goodbye. That night, as I lay in bed with the glow of my phone still lighting my face, I realized the truth. Lila hadn't just needed a friend. She'd needed a witness. Someone who refused to look away, even when it was unbearable. And somehow, against all odds, that had been enough to keep her alive. The hospital became our second home for the next 2 weeks. I couldn't be there physically, but Claire never let me out of the loop. Every day, I was on FaceTime, sometimes with her, sometimes just watching the monitors beep steadily beside Lila's bed. The first time she finally woke up, her eyes fluttering open in the dim ICU light, Claire turned the camera so I could see. Hey, sleepyhead, I whispered, tears spilling down my cheeks. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. Still here, she rasped. That 2-word sentence was the most beautiful thing I had ever heard. The doctors later confirmed what I'd feared, sepsis. The infection had been raging for days. If she had waited even another night, she might not have survived. The guilt hit me like a tidal wave. How many nights had I sat there, telling myself staying silent was protecting her? But when I voiced that guilt to her, she shook her head. You didn't abandon me, Han. You stayed. Even when nobody else did. You're the reason I made it through. Her father tried to visit once. I only knew because Claire FaceTimed me during the confrontation. Greg stood in the hallway, insisting he just wanted to check in, but Claire blocked the door like a lioness. You nearly led her with your pride, she spat. You don't get to play father now. Security escorted him out. Vanessa never showed her face. The fallout was messy. CPS got involved, lawyers called, custody battles reopened, but through it all, one truth shone clear. Lila wasn't alone anymore. Not legally. Not emotionally. Not ever again. When she was finally discharged, she sat up in her hospital bed, phone in hand, and hit FaceTime. My screen lit up with her smile, pale but real this time. Ready to come home? I asked. Ready to start over, she said softly. In the weeks that followed, our calls slowly shifted back to something closer to normal. We laughed again. We planned again. But there was an unspoken weight between us too, a reminder of how fragile things had been, and how close I'd come to losing her. One night, she looked at me through the screen and whispered, You know that night, when I said it might be my last goodbye? My throat tightened. Yeah. She smiled sadly. It wasn't, because you didn't let it be. And in that moment, I realized something that would stay with me forever. Technology didn't save her. I didn't save her. What saved her was love, the stubborn, relentless kind that refuses to hang up, even when the call gets hard to watch. FaceTime had started as our lifeline, then became the stage for our darkest hours. But in the end, it wasn't her last goodbye. It was the reason we both learned that sometimes, just refusing to look away is enough to change everything.